When it comes to comfort, nothing beats heavy armor like a soft bear costume. Get your virtual reality helmet, your magical powers, and your bear merchandise ready, because it's time to step into the cheeky world of Kuma Bear. A kid named Kai bursts into the Crimonia Adventurers Guild, desperately looking for someone to help his village since a dangerous black snake is devouring all its inhabitants. Kai has pooled all his village's money in his frantic bid for help. Unfortunately, all the high-ranking adventurers are out on other missions, and no lower-level warrior can defeat the creature. Just as Kai starts to lose hope, a curious girl dressed in a bear costume named Yuna appears before him. Despite her odd appearance, which doesn't exactly scream fear-inspiring, she's a low-level warrior, so the guild's manager can't authorize her to fight the snake. Yuna then tells him that although she can't fight the creature as a low-level warrior, what she can do is go investigate the site, gather information, and then pass it on to more experienced warriors to deal with the creature. The manager agrees, and Yuna accompanies Kai to his village. Since the village is quite a distance away and Kai's horse is exhausted, Yuna summons two bears to carry them to their destination, showing she's more than she seems. During a break, Kai talks to Yuna, who tells him to rest, but he replies that being weak, he can't fight the monster, but if the only thing he can do is seek help, he'll do it no matter what. The duo arrives at Kai's village only to find it deserted, but Yuna discovers that the villagers are actually hiding. Kai reunites with his father, who updates him on the situation, informing him that the snake has devoured several villagers, and no one can escape because of the creature's keen sense of hearing, which helps it catch them. Yuna tries to calm Kai's father, telling him she's here to kill the creature, but seeing her outfit, the man takes it as a joke. Yuna goes out to face the creature under the pretext of gathering information. In a wasteland outside the village, Yuna battles the snake using a vast arsenal of magical powers and physical strength, defeating it after a tough fight. That night, the villagers throw a party in her honor, and Kai's father apologizes for judging her based on her appearance. Yuna returns to the Adventurers Guild and reports defeating the snake, to everyone's surprise, except for one adventurer who seems to know the power of the young girl. Back in the real world, Yuna disconnects from her virtual reality helmet, revealing she's actually a video game player. As she sells items gained from her adventures, her grandpa calls her, and she tells him she's fine. Her parents went on a trip with money she gave them, and she feels comfortable living alone. After hanging up, the young girl dives back into the virtual reality world, where she feels it's the only place she can truly be herself. Yuna logs into the game, and a game rep asks her to pick a treasure chest as a gift based on her total gameplay hours from the last year, and she ends up choosing the Kuma set. While she's thankful, she wonders what's the deal with the bear costume she received, since she'd never wear it in public because of how embarrassing it is. After entering the world, she's shocked to find herself in a completely new game level, donning the bear gear, and back to level 1, thinking it's a glitch until she gets an email from God telling her to enjoy this new world. Trying to log out to file a complaint to the admins, Yuna is attacked by a wolf, which she defeats with a single blow, discovering that the level 1 of her bear suit is equal to or more powerful than her previous level. After beating the wolf that attacked her, she ends up saving a girl named Fina from other wolves. Yuna is surprised that the wolves didn't vanish after being defeated, but chalks it up to a new game update. Fina thanks our heroine and asks if she plans to dismantle the wolves to sell their parts, to which our heroine says she hadn't thought of that. With Yuna's permission, Fina dismantles the wolves, using a knife and extracting valuable parts that our heroine stores in the infinite space inside one of her bear gloves. In town, Fina sells the wolf parts, leading to a generous profit, but when Yuna offers her half of the loot, the girl refuses to accept such a generous payment, so Yuna hires her as a guide for the afternoon. Fina guides our heroine around the city, Yuna treats her to dinner, and the two part ways amicably. The next day, Yuna accepts the truth. She's no longer in the game but in the real Crimonia, yet this realization doesn't bother her much as she doesn't have much to miss from the real world. Our heroine practices with her new abilities, finding out that her suit makes her too powerful. Unfortunately, she also discovers that removing even the gloves causes her to lose all abilities. Yuna tries to join the Adventurers Guild, but her odd outfit leads to mockery from the other adventurers, and they won't let her register until she effortlessly beats one of them, a warrior named Deborah, earning her adventurer's card. On her first mission, she deals with a pack of wolves but is scolded for bringing back the animals' bodies without dismantling them. One of the town's merchants, a friend of Fina's, suggests Yuna take the girl on as her assistant to handle dismantling the creatures. Yuna promises to think it over until the next day when our heroine goes to exterminate a tiger wolf in the forest and ends up saving Fina's life once again from the tiger wolf that attacked her. Afterwards, Yuna and Fina become partners, with Yuna taking on the monsters and Fina handling the collection. Another day dawns and Yuna has adjusted surprisingly well to her new reality, keeping a positive outlook. Yuna becomes a victim of her own success, hunting too many monsters too fast, overloading the communal collection space. This happens because Fina takes her time gathering elements from the creatures, as she's very thorough. The guild manager asks Yuna to stop hunting since the forest is meant for beginner adventurers to train and level up. Our protagonist tries to explain she's also a newbie, but the manager doesn't believe her, given her skills and power. At the guild, after Yuna finishes hunting with Fina, a man named Lance confronts her for defeating Deborah, whom she had hit days before. Lance tries to confront Yuna but is stopped by the rest of his group, who apologize on behalf of Lance and Deborah, who deserved the beating for insulting her. Even though the warrior looked for trouble and got suspended from the guild, this put his adventure group in a difficult position. Along with the group's mage, Lurina, they had a mission to destroy a goblin den. But without the warrior, and with the other two being busy, it would be impossible for the mage to complete the mission alone. The guild manager warns Lurina that abandoning the mission would tarnish the group's reputation, affecting future jobs. The guild manager recommends Yuna, who, although not too interested in the mission, accepts on the condition of having nothing to do with Deborah. Thus, Yuna heads out to subdue 50 goblins with Lurina. However, upon arriving at the forest, they discover there are actually over 100 goblins and even a goblin king in the area. Yuna then single-handedly exterminates the goblin horde and the goblin king, but she refuses to collect the parts, leaving the hard task to Lurina, while she uses her new earth control powers to create a room to nap in while her partner diligently collects. After the mission, the guild is surprised at the reward for destroying the goblins and their king, leading a humbled Lance to apologize to our heroine and thank her for protecting his mage, a task neither he nor his partner could have accomplished. Later, Yuna gains a new ability that allows her to summon familiars with her bear gloves. Thus, two bears appear by her side, serving as transportation and possessing immense strength. Later, together with Fina, and assisted by the Guild of Merchants manager, who has seen a significant increase in profits since our heroine began hunting, Yuna rents land to build her house, which includes a facility for Fina to use for monster collection. Meanwhile, it's revealed that a young girl was watching them from behind a tree. Back to where our story began, Yuna arrives at the guild with the Black Viper, and all the guild members, especially Fina, proceed to harvest its parts. As Fina is cutting the snake's skin, she starts to reminisce about how her life has changed since she met the bear warrior. After the other guild members finish harvesting, Fina visits Yuna's house later that day to give her the Black Viper's mana gem. Yuna then notices that Fina has a cut on her hand from an accident while cutting the snake and uses her magic to heal it. The next day, Yuna is summoned to the guild but flatly refuses a request from Cliff Phoskyros, the feudal lord of Crimonia, as she doesn't want to work for nobility that exploits and mistreats the poor. However, the guild leader assures her that Phoskyros is the exception to the rule, a noble who cares more about his subjects than himself, and stresses that refusing would severely damage the guild's reputation, and Yuna would have to leave the town for not assisting their beloved feudal lord. With little choice, Yuna reluctantly accepts. At Fina's house, her mother's health worsens, and the girl goes out in search of medicine, leaving her younger sister in charge. When Yuna arrives at Phoskyros' home, she's greeted by the feudal lord, who has heard rumors about the bear warrior and finds her attire somewhat amusing. Yuna is reluctant to socialize with the noble, but he tells her he summoned her to please his young daughter, Moir. The girl is a fan of Yuna, listens to her stories attentively, and even rides on our heroine's bears, softening Yuna a bit towards the little girl. Phoskyros tells our heroine another reason he requested a meeting with her was to ask for the Black Serpent's gem as an emperor's birthday gift, but the bear refuses. However, she offers the Goblin King's sword, which Phoskyros accepts. When he tries to pay her, the young girl, who has no need for money, offers it as a gift in exchange for a future favor. Phoskyros agrees, provided the favor is within his power and doesn't violate any laws. Thus, in a world of magic and magical powers, the strangest thing we've seen is a decent politician. Later, When Yuna is on her way home, she finds a despondent Fina standing in the rain, who tells her that her mother, Telmina's illness, has worsened. At Fina's house, Yuna tries to heal Telmina with little success at first. Realizing she needs to use her magic differently, Yuna finally manages to cure Telmina of her illness. After Telmina recovers from her illness, Yuna uses her new bear transfer gate ability to travel to Kai's village to get some eggs. Yuna offers some eggs to Fina, who insists on paying for them, but the bear girl tells her the eggs are practically worth nothing since what usually makes them expensive is their transportation, which she has under control, revealing her new ability to her friend. Yuna explains to Fina that she can transport through different gates she builds throughout the kingdom. She also mentions that building the gates is a hassle and asks the girl if there's an easier way to teleport, but when Fina says she doesn't know anyone with that ability, she tells her to keep it a secret. The next day, Yuna goes out to buy lunch when she sees some orphans waiting for leftovers. She heads to the orphanage, where she learns that the feudal lord has stopped supporting them. Yuna helps the orphanage by feeding them and assisting with the building, but she knows this is a temporary solution since what the orphanage really needs is a source of income to be self-sufficient, without depending on her or anyone else. Yuna decides to help the orphanage by setting up a Coca-Cola farm so they can sell eggs. She also gives Telmina a job as a representative. Yuna's plan is to flood the market with eggs, expensive at first and then lower the prices to avoid raising suspicions with the Merchants Guild, with whom Telmina negotiates. Sometime later, Cliff Phoskyros arrives at Yuna's house and bluntly asks what problem she has with him and his family, as he's discovered that even though the orphanage is selling eggs to everyone, a super specific clause in the contract with the Merchants Guild prohibits selling eggs to the Phoskyros family. Turns out, Cliff really likes eggs. Yuna replies that the orphanage isn't obligated to do anything for him after he cut off their funds and left them to fend for themselves. Cliff is hit hard by this and, not knowing how to respond, leaves behind an angry and proud Yuna. When Cliff returns home, he discovers that Enz Roland, the orphanage's administrator, has been embezzling the orphanage's funds, among other projects, unveiling a corruption network by other officials who have been falsifying documents behind the feudal lord's back. That night, Cliff furiously confronts and arrests Enz. At the orphanage, a humbled Cliff apologizes for what happened and promises to immediately restore the funds, but the caretakers tell him it's unnecessary, as thanks to the egg business, the orphanage can sustain itself, proving once again that child exploitation does work. Cliff insists on helping to restore the building and thanks Yuna for opening his eyes. At home, Fina consoles Yuna for helping the orphanage when she expresses her shame for not trusting Cliff. Things seem to be going well after Telmina accepts Gentz's marriage proposal. However, the next morning, Fina tells Yuna that her mom and Gentz had an argument during breakfast. The fight, sparked by Gentz's eating habits, isn't anything serious, but the girls, being girls, are worried, and Yuna tries to comfort them. Then, they ask Yuna if she can take them to retrieve the snow crystal flower that their parents and uncles once found when they were young adventurers. So, Yuna accompanies the girls to the area where the flower is located, and although they are safe under our protagonist's protection, the journey isn't without its hiccups. The young ones arrive at the place where the snow crystal flower is supposed to be, but the first thing they notice is that everything is green, not exactly the kind of place where a flower called a snow flower would be found. Nonetheless, the girls insist it's the right place and start searching for the said flower. While searching, Shuri notices something shiny. When she finds it's a bird caught in a trap, she and Fina rescue it. As the bird flies away, one of its feathers falls into Shuri's hands. When Fina and Shuri show it to their mother and Gentz, they realize it's the same feather that Roy, the girl's father, had. Gentz apologizes to the girls and explains that he and their mother were never really fighting, and officially asks the girls if they would allow him to be their new father, to which the girls excitedly agree. Fina realizes Yuna was right when she said everything would be okay. Later, Fina and Shuri are at Yuna's house, where they help her prepare pudding. The next day, Yuna gives some of her pudding to all her acquaintances, who find it delicious, especially the members of the Merchants Guild. While Cliff enjoys it, he asks Yuna if she can take Noir to the royal capital. Yuna and Fina head over to Cliff's place to escort Noir to the royal capital, since Cliff can't make the trip right away and trusts only Yuna to protect his daughter. Noir acts possessively towards Yuna and her bears, making Fina's first impression of her as a spoiled child. As they travel, Noir finds out Fina has ridden Yuna's bears before and asks her what her relationship is with her idol. Yuna and Fina share with Noir how they met, which irritates Noir as she's annoyed by how close the two friends are, and she proudly declares Fina as her rival, much to Yuna's embarrassment. During the journey, Noir reveals that her mother and older sister live in the royal capital. As the day ends, Yuna decides to stop for a rest and cook for everyone, creating a bear-shaped house, since that's kind of her trademark, but she asks Noir to keep it a secret. Noir is amazed by Yuna's cooking, a hamburg steak, and asks her idol to teach her how to cook like that. The next day, the trio encounters Count Grand Farangram and his granddaughter Mizana, whose carriage they save from a monster attack. Like everyone, they're taken aback by our heroine's curious attire. The girls continue their journey to the capital with Farangram and Mizana, alternating between the carriage and our protagonist's bears. Once in the royal capital, Yuna and the bear-riding girls turn heads, but Yuna's getting used to it. The group splits up, and Yuna, Fina, and Noir are warmly received by Noir's mother, Eleonora, after the obligatory shock of seeing a bear-dressed warrior. Eleonora tells Yuna that Cliff has sent her several letters talking about Yuna, declaring his trust in the young girl but warning his wife about the bear warrior's temperament. Later that day, Shia arrives at the house. Not knowing Yuna, Shia deems it irresponsible of her father to let the young girl escort her younger sister. Understanding her daughter's skepticism about Yuna, Eleonora suggests the two young women have a duel, which Yuna wins repeatedly until she finally earns Shia's respect. At dinner, Yuna serves Noir, Shia, and Eleonora some pudding. The next morning, Yuna and Fina go food shopping and indulge in the capital's delicacies, giving our heroine an idea. That night, Yuna cooks cheeseburgers and fries for everyone, who enjoy it and ask her if she ever thought about opening a restaurant. Sure, it would be a hit. Yuna thinks it's not the first time someone has suggested that, since the leader of the Merchants Guild recommended she open a restaurant after trying her pudding. Yuna cheerfully comments that running a restaurant isn't in her plans since she prefers eating to cooking, and the women continue their dinner. In the distance, mysterious figures lurk outside the royal capital. Back in the day, after being arrested for conducting illegal experiments on humans, a man vows revenge against the king. Fast forward to the present, Yuna serves everyone some pizza. Noir asks Yuna if she can take Fina and Mizana on an errand tomorrow, leaving Yuna's schedule open so she can be alone. Our heroine is not thrilled about the idea since it leaves her alone in an unfamiliar city, but Eleonora offers to show her around the king's castle. The next morning, Eleonora shows Yuna around the castle, where she meets Princess Flora, a little girl immediately smitten with the bear and offers to be her tour guide around the castle. Yuna is uncomfortable with the idea of a princess as her guide, seeing it as disrespectful, but eventually agrees when the princess bursts into tears. Meanwhile, Noir takes Fina and Mizana to pick up membership cards for the fan club she's starting. Yuna returns to Noir's house only to find Shia training to beat her one day and the girls discussing official bear club matters. That night, a mysterious figure heads towards the royal capital, followed by strange creatures. The next day, Yuna, Noir, and Fina learn that people have been attacked in the northern forest. When Noir realizes her father will be arriving in that area, Yuna offers to pick him up. Later, the mysterious figure, named Gulzum, confronts the king while he's talking with Eleonora. After Gulzum reveals he has gathered an army of monsters before vanishing, the king summons Sanya, the master of the Adventurers Guild. The king reveals that Gulzum was a sorcerer who used innocent people for experiments, so he was arrested by the king's forces. Yuna heads to meet Cliff but finds the forest teeming with monsters. While they pose no problem for her, escorting Cliff back and fighting the monsters while protecting him could be challenging. Thus, our young hero decides to first eliminate the monsters and then meet Cliff. Using her magic, Sanya reports that a powerful bear has defeated Gulzum and his monster army. The king wonders who this bear is, and Eleonora hints she might know. Cliff arrives at the meeting point with Yuna, only to find the young girl and a slew of dead monsters. Cliff tells our heroine that such a feat won't go unnoticed, and the bear girl will become a celebrity. Wanting to keep a low profile, Yuna convinces Cliff to cash in the favor he owes her and take credit for the feat. However, Eleonora, knowing the truth, brings our protagonist and Cliff before the king, and Cliff, being the honest man he is, refuses to lie and take credit for Yuna's deed, which is sensible because no one would have believed him anyway. The king thanks our heroine and offers a reward, but she declines, explaining that defeating the monsters was a lucky accident since all she wanted was to meet Cliff to help her friend. Cliff reunites with his daughter, and seeing her friend smiles, Yuna admits that the real reward is seeing them happy. At the king's birthday celebration, Yuna's pudding is offered to the guests, turning into an instant hit. The next day, Yuna and Fina decide to hit the bakery before heading back home. However, upon arrival, the owners, Morin and Karen, reveal they're losing the bakery because they borrowed money from a shady place. That same night, Yuna decides to hire them for a store she's opening in Crimonia. In Crimonia, Yuna hires Telmina as the manager of her new venture. Moreover, when Morin and Karen arrive in the city, Yuna reveals she's turning a noble's mansion into the store. After employing the orphanage kids as staff, because who's gonna say anything? Their parents? Yuna names the store Bear's Den, which becomes a huge success. In fact, the success is so overwhelming that the employees can't keep up, so Yuna and her friends decide to pitch in. After closing shop for the night, Cliff and Noir show up, and he reveals he's arrested the individuals who gave the bakery the exorbitantly illegal loan, returning the money and the title of the place to its rightful owners. Because Cliff does the important work when no one's looking, good for Cliff. When Yuna hands the document to Morin and Karen, she gives them the option to return to the capital and reopen their bakery, but the grateful women decide to stay in the city. This decision puts Yuna in a good mood, thinking about the women's words, who found the place that makes them happy. Yuna thinks about her current life and smiles before going to bed. Yuna heads to the port city of Melilla for some seafood when she comes across a couple that has collapsed in the mountains. After rescuing them, Damon and Yura reveal they were heading to Crimonia to buy food because the city has been terrorized by a kraken and a band of thieves for a month. Once in Melilla, Yuna decides to help. She then heads to the Adventurers Guild, where she meets the guild master, Atla. While Yuna donates food, Atla reveals the guild has been busy dealing with all the troubles. The next day, the town has plenty of food again thanks to Yuna. Later, Yuna and Atla have a conversation about the kraken. That night, Yuna deals with two intruders who are part of the thieves' band. Then, she heads to the thieves' hideout to take down the remaining members. A weary Yuna brings the thieves to Atla, where she interrogates the leader. Meanwhile, when Zared, the head of the Merchants Guild, learns the thieves have been caught, he tries to flee the city with the stolen valuables until he's stopped. Afterwards, Yuna heads to the restaurant and cries tears of joy eating Japanese cuisine. Then she decides to take on the kraken upon discovering the restaurant will get more ingredients from the country of Wa. Yuna struggles to come up with a viable strategy to fight the kraken. Later, Yura invites Yuna to her house as a thank you for saving her and Damon. While eating, Yuna imagines how to confront the kraken. With Atla's help, Yuna corners the kraken. Then she uses her fire magic to finally defeat it. After this, Atla carries an exhausted Yuna. Amazed by its cooking, Yuna offers to set up a restaurant just for her in Crimonia. Honored, ANS says that's not possible as it would take her away from her loved ones. Yuna takes this seriously and tells her if she can solve the distance problem, she'll make the offer to her new friend again. Yuna is enjoying the feast ANS has prepared when Atla shows up to ask Yuna to accept a request, hopefully to get some manners, because you shouldn't bother people while they're eating. Later, Yuna returns to Crimonia and is greeted by Fina, who wishes to spend time with her. However, our heroine doesn't have time to socialize and tells Fina she has to do something. At Cliff's house, Yuna hands him a letter from Melilla asking to be under Crimonia's wing. Unfortunately, being separated by large mountains, it's virtually impossible for Crimonia's government to have any control over the coastal town, let alone go to their aid in an emergency. When Cliff expresses his concern, Yuna reveals she's dug a tunnel using her powers. The next day, Yuna, Cliff, and Mylane arrive in Melilla where negotiations are friendly. Though if we read between the lines, Yuna's going to end up doing the hard work. After solving the distance problem, Yuna takes Fina and Shuri to see the ocean. However, Fina realizes she and Yuna are gradually drifting apart due to work and Yuna's popularity. Days pass, and if it's not one thing, it's another. Yuna's schedule is too busy to share time with Fina, saddening the girl, though she understands her friend has too many responsibilities. Yet, the absence of her friend is a pain she can't control. Therefore, Fina asks Yuna if she can take a break from the harvest to train with her stepfather and be more useful to her. The next morning, Yuna goes out with Noir while Fina trains with Gintz. Thanks to Noir and Gintz, Yuna and Fina realize how much they miss each other. When they reunite, Yuna confesses to her friend that in her previous life, she was a very lonely girl, never depending on anyone or getting attached to people or places, but now all that has changed. Thus, the two friends hug and swear to stick together.